Hello YouTube, and welcome to the Movie Geek Talks. I'm the Movie Geek, and today I'm talking the Belko experiment. What? What? When did you?
Mum said you've got to take us to a film.
So I'm not watching the Belko experiment then?
No, Dad. We're here. It's too old for us.
So I've got to take you to see a film that you want to watch?
Yes, Dad.
Am I going to get attacked by one of the characters from the film today?
No, not today.
Well, that's good. I'm the Movie Geek, and today I'm talking Beauty and the Beast. Disney. The longevity of this company is profound. It has endured for 93 years, founded in 1923 and starting from a cartoon studio to become one of the biggest hitters in Hollywood, to owning some of the biggest franchises today. It's a company that has learnt to adapt, to not only give the audience what they want, but also give the audience new things. Walt Disney Pictures has taken chances on films that don't always succeed. See John Carter, Mars Needs Moms, and The Lone Ranger, which, to be fair, I didn't mind. And despite not all making losses, their box offices only just made back their budget. They have the money to throw at films that don't always make their money back. They believe in the films they make, even if putting up more money isn't always the right thing to do. John Carter only made $20 million profit, which put a stop to any sequels. Mars Needs Moms made $111 million loss, and The Lone Ranger made a $35.5 million profit, which stopped any future sequels, despite having a rousing bit of the William Tell overture. If we didn't have companies that were willing to take chances on films, we wouldn't have films like Star Wars or Alien. Disney carved their niche in cartoons, animated feature-length films, and live-action movies, and has been going ever since. Then came 1989, and with it, the Disney Renaissance. The Disney Renaissance was a period kicked off by the production of The Little Mermaid, after a decrease in quality and success following Walt Disney's death. But with The Little Mermaid, a change came, and a series of films followed that raised Disney back to the top. Among the films released in the Disney Renaissance was Beauty and the Beast, and the film that normalises Stockholm Syndrome, and the acceptance that if a 10-year-old boy, whose family you work for, does something wrong, you'll spend your life as a clock. But I digress. Beauty and the Beast was the first animated film to be nominated for a Best Picture Academy Award, and the movie that furthered the investment into CGI, and theoretically, without it, we wouldn't have Toy Story or Pixar as it is today. But why have they made this? Well, after the success of the live-action Maleficent, Cinderella and The Jungle Book, it was only time until Disney retread some of the Renaissance films. This is the first, but as of writing, Mulan, Aladdin, The Lion King and The Little Mermaid have all been ordered, showing that Disney have so much confidence in their future live-action remakes that they are willing to retread old stories. Was it worth it? What was the difference? And do those differences necessitate a remake? My answer to these questions is no. I'm not saying it was a bad film, far from it. It's well made, it looks good and sounds good, but in the grand scheme of things, this is almost a carbon copy of the original. Yes, it has some new scenes, new songs and attempts to build on the relationship aspect, but a lot of the things that made the original great cannot be emulated, no matter how much money or how far the technology has evolved. If you take the Be Our Guest scene, we get the scene that is going all out to try and emulate the original, but it just cannot do it. It tries hard, but it just doesn't come across as heartfelt as the original. It does build and become a massive fanfare of flying plates and explosions of colour, but it doesn't have the heart of the original. Every so often we get Emma Watson trying to react to the visual, but again, it doesn't feel like she's seeing what we're seeing. I don't know if this is down to her acting or what, but the scene, which in the original was mine and many other people's favourite, just hasn't been portrayed or translated to live action very well. Other elements that didn't seem to work were the characters. The only character to really grow was LeFou. Yet, with all the advertising that this was the first openly gay character, it is extremely loose. He comes across as being more infatuated with and in awe of Gaston. But at the same time, he wants to be Gaston. LeFou's character development becomes the most intriguing part of the film. He follows Gaston but increasingly sees him becoming the monster. There are moments that suggest he's gay, with him saying that he and Gaston are going through a rough patch, and during the last dance a man spins into his arms, despite both disappearing from the end of the film. But if you're going to advertise that he is the openly gay character, make him gay. Don't leave it open to debate. There was basically nothing to indicate that he was gay. It seems to have been overhyped before the release. LeFou is protective over Gaston and puts him on a pedestal, but for the first openly gay character, he comes across more confused than anything, and more confused about Gaston's moral centre rather than his own sexuality, which is probably why they had to announce it before the film's release. However, it is commendable that Disney have done this, or have tried to do this, and it is a step in the right direction, but it seems to have been added as an afterthought to show how diverse the film is. As for the CG characters, and I'm not too sure if they were motion captured, but I felt they looked awful. The worst in my opinion was Lumiere. He looked terrible. He didn't look like a candelabra. Well, he did, but it just was ugly. He looked awful. Cogsworth, on the other hand, looks perfect. He actually appeared to be a real clock, and with Ian McKellen bringing him to life, seemingly without breaking a sweat. I'm not saying Ewan McGregor didn't bring Lumiere to life. He did, but the visual just looked ugly, and the other characters, Mrs. Potts and Chip, were fairly well done. But overall, I felt the best enchanted object servant was Cogsworth. The Beauty and the Beast were fairly bland, not really adding anything to the characters. I would even go as far to say that they weren't as good as the original actors, and they were just using their voices. Their performances were dull, and they appeared to just be reading their lines. They were dull. If viewed without thinking on the original, their singing was okay. It didn't really stand out, but it had been done before, and unfortunately, it had been done better. The songs, for the most part, were good, and as a standalone musical, without the crutch of the original, it would have been a great musical. But because it is a remake, you can't just take it on its own. The songs were good. Most of them were just the original songs repeated or sung by different people. Be Our Guest, Belle, Gaston, the Mob Song, The Beauty and the Beast were all done as well as the original, not as good. Watson didn't seem comfortable singing, but with the aid of auto-tune she was able to hit those notes. There was the addition of some new songs too, but each time there was a new song, it just felt like padding. I'm not saying this wasn't a good film or a good remake. It was okay, and I'm sure that Disney are happy enough with their billion-dollar return. But from my point of view, it's clear the main problem of this film is the fact that it is a remake, and a remake of a Disney classic, a Disney that have done better. It doesn't add anything new to the story except for a plot hole. The actors bring what they can to the story, but it just goes through the exact same motions as the original. Despite how different the story of Maleficent was, at least it gave us a different take on the well-known Sleeping Beauty story. Even the Jungle Book improved on the Mowgli-Shere Khan dynamic, giving them a linked backstory that built up to the emotional conclusion. But the Beauty and the Beast film was exactly the same. It isn't a bad film though, but it isn't a good film either. The original hangs around its neck like a lead weight, reminding the audience of its predecessor. In its attempt to be loyal to the original, it shot itself in its own hairy foot. It's funny that out of the live-action remakes that have been completed, The Beauty and the Beast is the youngest from the 90s. Seems to have had less changes made to the story. LeFou and Gaston were enjoyable to watch. I felt they toned down Gaston's egotistical traits and ramped up his murderous rage. But they did have a laugh out loud scene where he was talking to himself lovingly in the mirror. I do that every day.
Best thing I've ever seen. Nobody deserves you.
LeFou had a good arc where he outgrew Gaston, and as spoiled before the film was released, had his hero moment near the end. I didn't think the Beast was very good. Just didn't seem to blend well. He didn't really look beastly. He just looked rubbish. However, in a film like this, CGI is better than a stiff rubber suit. To conclude, it was a remake that couldn't shake the memory of its 26-year-old predecessor. I have gone through different feelings towards this, with my first thoughts being I wouldn't advise against watching this, but now I think it's probably better to have just watched the original. There was nothing in this that hasn't been done before in the original, and that hasn't been done better. Even the additional scenes seemed pointless and tacked on, just to extend the runtime. Watch the original and let this one pass you by. It's probably a bit too late to say that because it has been seen by everyone and everyone pretty much likes it. But does it justify existing? And does it justify the many live action remakes that are scheduled down the road? You'll have to wait for my follow-up video. Please like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed my video. You can find me on Facebook at The Ultimate Movie Geek, and I blog daily at theultimatemoviegeek.wordpress.com. Thanks for watching.